All right, good morning. Happy Saturday, everybody. Another Wise Guy Saturday Sweep Series here on Derby Saturday. I just shared my Derby loser with some. I'll mention it again later. Squeeze in some talk. I'd like to hear who you guys are putting your money on. But today we'll go over a lot of market stuff. I'll leave enough time for questions about strategy, stuff in regards to flow. Even individual names, and some of the activity that we had seen this past week. All right. Also, I just want to start off and get it out of the way. During the sweep series, I think it's 12 Saturdays in its entirety, we offer a promotion. For this series, we're offering $3.99, so $100 off. You get the chat and Wise Guy Revealed Modern Flow Trading, which basically is a little course on everything we look at in regards to flow. If you're not familiar with it, I'll get you brushed up on the important stuff. And it comes in video form, so you can go back and check on things from time to time, just as a refresher. Also, like little stuff like a checklist that I run through in regards to activity before I look to trade something and stuff like that. So basically what we're offering is for $3.99, you get 1 month of the steam room, and you get this included in that. Okay, I'll put the link so I don't forget. You could get it if you go to wallstreetjesus.com. You could get all this stuff. Pretty easy website to remember as well. Let me see if okay. All right, so check that out. Also, more importantly as well, I mentioned this quite a few times. You can become a free member of the Steam Room, okay? And we're building a really nice community where a lot of people coming in, pre-market, hanging out through market hours. I'm going to make it my business. I know I've been saying this for about a week or so now, but I'm going to make it my business to participate more in the lounge. This is what we refer to the lounge, where a lot of the free members and even premium members, we do a lot of hanging out there pre and post market. Okay. Also do pre-market audio, video, live, sort of setting up a game plan, going over some open interest. All right, so all you got to do, you go to wallstreetjesus.com. All right, and you click on the market updates tab, and you'll be able to log in from there. Again, free. No credit card, no trials, no nothing like that. All right, and also on wallstreetjesus.com, you know, we got a couple of little blogs on strategy in regards to flow and stuff like that, sweeps, looking for big moves, what to pay attention to, how to get a gauge on smart money sentiment, stuff like that you guys might find interesting. The action and review, that's post-market, every day after the market. A little bit of quick synopsis of what went on throughout the day. All right, and you can get the products and learn a little bit more about it as well on here. All right, so like I said, you know, in the weeks past, I expect and would love to see you guys in the lounge at the least. And now what we have included as well, we have a market updates tab that's open to everybody, not just premium members. And you'll see me use this today as we talk about certain activity and stuff we saw through the week, because I post some notable stuff in here, okay, that's gone on throughout the day. Like I said, it's not in real time during market hours, but pre-market, post-market, I do post a lot of stuff in here. All right, so I just wanted to get that out of the way because a lot of times I forget, and as we run out of time later on in the day. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the market and what we got going on here, what we got coming forward. Obviously, there's the French election this weekend. They're not making as big of a deal out of it this time around. I don't want to get into the politics of it because I really don't care. But they were a little bit more concerned. Basically, in simple English, they had two crazy guys on the opposite ends of the extreme. They were hoping they weren't the two finalists because then it was a lose-lose situation. So a guy the market, in quotations, was rooting for made it to the final round. I think they're voting as we speak right now. Okay. One thing we did see this week, not as much as the prior week into the first round of the elections in France, we didn't see that rush for protection. Okay, we saw a little bit of it on Friday. Actually, it was late Thursday into Friday, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as far as what we saw. But we didn't see, the rise in the VIX. We didn't see a massive rush into puts. And that's, in my opinion, what set up that slingshot squeeze we got off, again, the good news out of France that Monday. Okay. Now, the only reason that may concern me a bit, if you guys remember going into Brexit, it wasn't the same setup that we saw into our election, into France, and into some of the ones that came after Brexit. What happened there was the market actually was strong into Brexit. Nobody thought Brexit was remotely possible. The market was actually breaking out the day of Brexit. And I remember vividly because a lot of traders were all bulled up going into that Brexit vote because stocks really look good. Even flow, okay? Even flow was pretty strong. We weren't seeing any rush to the protection side as far as hedging is concerned, okay? And what happened? The impossible happened, right? Brexit actually ended up working out. We had the markets just fall out of bed. And then eventually, what happened was everybody started to get all lathered up on the bear side, all protected up, all betting on further downside, and we had a massive squeeze. But my point being, after Brexit, it's sort of like traders were preparing for the next Brexit. They were getting ready for the next Brexit, each and every situation that was similar to that. Even our election, okay, if you remember, the markets were quite weak. Everybody talking about Armageddon if Trump won. Trump won. The futures fell out of bed, but before you could even sip your cup of coffee at the open, we were already storming back. Okay, and then France, our latest example, market's a little bit of an edge, and then you get that slingshot rally. So what's a little bit different, not drastically different, not like Brexit, but you didn't have that massive rush to protection, but we did see some of it, and some of it was a little strange, and I'll talk about why that is in a second here. All right, but aside from all that, recapping the week, markets were strong. All right, flow was solid. We kind of had this gap, if you guys remember, and then we've gone into this consolidation now, breaking out per se. All right, but it's been more. There's been a lot of run-ups into earnings and the FANG names. You got the Apple, you had the Tesla that had a nice run into earnings. Google caught a little heat. Amazon, you name it. Even some of the under-the-radar names. And we spoke about it last week. The Visas, the JDs, the IAC, some of the mid-tier names that caught really nice action also had nice run-ups into the numbers. Some popped even further after their earnings. Some come in a bit and have consolidated. But that's sort of been the trade out there. You know what I mean? It's been, everybody has been paying attention to FANG as far as on the retail end. And for good reason. You look at the Apples of the world, I mean, stock just doesn't know how to pull back anymore. There was a glimpse of maybe some pullback or consolidation off earnings, and they couldn't have that last a day. As a matter of fact, on Friday, I would say probably, let me see here if and I can go dig into the flow. But Friday, Apple caught what we'd refer to as that momentum type sweeper activity, whether it's machines, algos, or even traders just looking to play off the short-term momentum. A lot of these smaller sweeps, one after the other, rapid fire. And don't get me wrong, we did also see some size in further out months. But Apple, even after this huge move, the flow still sticking with these names. Okay, it becomes a little more difficult to trade. I'm not comfortable trading these things. Okay, I recommend to all the members and any traders I talk to on a daily basis that even though it's been, and it has been, easy money in these things, you really want to get used to buying at the least on some sort of pullback, at least into red when you get it. Because when the music stops, it's going to hurt. Okay, and that applies to all these things, not just Apple. And when you're trading options as well, you don't want to really get hit over the head premium-wise when everybody wants these things. Okay, and when you have Apple up $2 and everyone's giddy, that's when these market makers have their hand in your pocket. All right, but that's across the board. Even Facebook, okay, who, you look at the run here, it's been enormous. The flow's been enormous. And we're still seeing size Facebook buyers. So who's to say this thing doesn't have another leg up from here? Okay, but we got to understand that there's going to be a point in time when the music stops in these things. And as long as you understand that before you even get into them, it's fine. It's just a loser. If it's just a loser, it's fine. But when you get to the point where you think that you're never going to lose money in these things, or, a common mistake amongst traders, if it comes down, buy more and hold. If it comes down, buy more, it'll eventually turn. That's when they blow themselves up. So if you treat these things just like any other normal play, you're trying to make a little bit of money and it's just a loser, it's fine to trade these things. I would just recommend trying to wait for a pullback. Now, in reality, this may be the Facebook pullback, right? That this is what's going on. I'll give you an example. Tesla, this past week, also saw a pullback off earnings, and we started to see Tesla call sweepers come in to the weakness on Thursday. So they're not even giving these things a chance to breathe. Okay, and the reason why I bring that up, a lot of times what you'll see is, let's just take like a Netflix, for example, okay? What you'll see is a stock rally, ton of call activity, stock rally, and then, a kind of go out of favor for a period of time, maybe a month and a half or two, and the call sweeper activity will just dry up. You won't see any call activity. Okay, and then what happens after the pullback and little consolidation, you'll start to see the call sweepers start to heat up again and come back into a name, and that sets up another entry for us. The problem, like I said, with the Facebook, the Apple, the Teslas, we're not seeing the call sweeper activity dry up yet, which is incredible. So there's still a demand for these things. There's still a lot of momentum, obviously, in these things. And that's what I'm kind of getting a gauge on as far as out of the flow is concerned. Okay. But for me, this is not my cup of tea, these names. I look at these things from here as a trade. Like you look at Facebook here, you catch some weakness. You were looking for an entry. You didn't want to chase this. You finally got some earnings weakness, if you want to call it that. You see a decent wise guy order come into Facebook. That could be your entry and, playing for the pop. But I wouldn't build a size position up here. I wouldn't expect a similar move like this from here. It would just be a trade. Okay, well, let me try to explain that a little better. I'll give you an example. AMD. I was saying the same thing about AMD only because AMD has saw wise guy call buying all the way from last year, nonstop, every quarter, after pre-earnings, post-earnings. AMD literally from $2-3 has seen nonstop call activity. All right, so what I mentioned to a lot of members up here, I would play it the same way, where if I catch this little pullback, I see some call sweeper activity come into that pullback, I look to sell that rip for a trade. You know what I mean? That type of thing, rather than expecting a move like this, especially if you're trading options, because you got to predict the time that's going to happen by. Okay, so you get caught in one of these, you're done. Even something smaller than this earnings pullback, you get caught in some lengthy consolidation, you're done. You'll get some premium drain there. So that's how I would approach all these hot names, all these FANG names, these tech names that have gone up basically in a straight line. What I'm looking for is the next batch of buying, hopefully some major rotation post earnings, to come into the names like this, the initial activity. Okay, this IAC has been a stud, an absolute stud. Caught buying right here. You can see here it was the end of March. Okay, had a day of weakness. I think it was the day after the buying. The stock pulled back. They came in and bought some more. They came in again, bought some more the following day, and you actually had a nice trade where this little pop wasn't that little right here. It looks little compared to what it has done after that. But this thing has just been an absolute animal. And that's why I'm a big fan of initial activity. That's where you get the best risk reward, the biggest bang for your buck when they first start, when the smart money first starts to accumulate a name. All right, and I think I showed you guys the IAC just so you can get a gauge on what I mean by that aggressive initial buying. It looks like this. All right, so you can see this is December down here. So no action from December all the way to the end of March. Okay, so obviously there was a dry spell in wise guy activity. This is not a name that catches a lot of wise guy activity anyway. But on March 30th, you have a sweeper, an aggressive buyer, come in for almost $500,000 in the May 75 calls. March 30th, nope, is right here. If I could blow it up, I'll show you. Hang on. I just want to show you guys, and that's why I like to look at names of the past, not to brag about winners. You know what I mean? It's to anticipate what the next one may look at like. You know what I mean? What the flow should look like. So, okay, so right here is where they started buying it, this candle. So now, you see what happened the next day? See the shakeout the next day? The next day is 331. Look what they do the following day into some weakness. It was like Christmas came that this thing was soft that day. And, that's what you want to see. You want to see that aggressive, degenerate type buying coming in. You hear me guys say, most of us trading are humans. There's more machines than ever, but we all have that degenerate blood. In other words, when we have high confidence in something, when we truly feel like something's going to go and we know it, it's going to show in how we buy it. Okay, we're not going to open up a call spread. You know what I mean? We're going to go and sweep multiple exchanges for as much as this thing as we can get. And that's the type of activity this thing's seen. So you can see the next day, and closed nice, well off the lows, saw triple the amount of buying it saw on the initial day. And the key is, it wasn't up $2. It was lower, or at least at entry, from the initial activity. Why is that important? Because if it was up $2, I wouldn't chase it. You try to stick to as close as that initial activity as possible. If you get it cheaper, that's a bonus. But you don't want to pay up, is what I'm saying. Okay? And then, so then you get this, and this is where a lot of people in the room took profits. You had a nice day here and here, which offered a window to lock in some gain. I think the calls moved nicely. Okay? But then, as you can see, they came in again a month later, a little less than a month later, for another $500,000 and start sweeping the 80s, and that pretty much told you this thing was gone. So, that's why I stress, if you have this level, okay, if you utilize the initial activity as a level of entry, there's so many ways you can work it from this point. This is never a problem. You're always going to be frustrated that you sell too early, but at least you have options. A lot of time we see the smart money, what they do is roll up, roll out. In other words, they have May 75s, they'll sell those, pocket some money, so they pay themselves, and they'll go out to July and buy the 80s or the 85s. So they locked up some profits, and they leave some if they think this thing can go higher. The wise guys, smart money, do that almost always with names they come aggressively after. Because, they're usually sticking with something for more than just that quick trade. All right, and then you had earnings and all that stuff. So, you have to take the risk into earnings. I'm not including all that. But even up to prior to earnings, where you could have left a runner, per se, this thing was a huge winner. Another one was this ILG, which a lot of you know. The same type of activity, if not more so. Okay, this is something they came after every other day, seemingly, in a name that hardly ever catches activity, let alone this type of activity. So right here you had on, basically I would say 4-5, even though there was some buying prior to that. Early April is where this thing really started to heat up. They really started to come after June calls. And you could see this is early April here. You had a little bit of a consolidation and then just got loosed with this explosion. They started even nibbling back here a bit. But this thing was a slow mover. It just happened to go up every single day, seemingly, because there was buying every single day. They even were buying September's, also selling puts. That you name it, they did it in this thing. All right, but you guys know the story with this ILG. We spoke about it on Twitter and everywhere for that matter. But even smaller moves. Okay, let's take a JD, for example. You guys heard me mention this a couple times the last couple of weeks. Where the accumulation came in here, stock did a whole lot of nothing. But what happened? They kept buying. They kept buying. Now, you can even, and it takes a lot of patience and discipline, but you can even wait for these type of situations and not act on the first batch of buying to see if they do come after it. You'll miss some winners because a good number of the names have some sort of reaction, within a couple days, a week sometimes. But the strongest, what I'm trying to get at, my point is, the strongest action, the biggest winners usually come from this type of flow. as you move away from this type of flow, the more you move away from it, the less strong that signal is. All right, because again, I want to repeat what I've said numerous times. We never know what the true intent of these orders are unless you know the player personally. You really don't know why. Okay, we can assume, but we can't know for certain why that player is making a play on the call side there. But the more he comes after it, the more he accumulates, the better, the higher the probability that he's making a play on the upside there. So that's why, obviously, the more action you see in the name, the stronger the signal. And, so here, my point being JD, you have this move now. JD didn't have earnings coming. You could, use this as your initial entry, and you could continue to ride this thing. You can leave your position there with an unbelievable cost. But now you got to navigate around earnings that are coming. It'd be foolish to hold the position through earnings. You're rolling the dice there. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for going forward now. I'm looking for possibly some rotation, or even if not rotation, out of these hot names into some of the things that maybe haven't performed or haven't been as hot, and that may catch initial activity. We saw a decent amount of it prior to earnings season. You just had to navigate around earnings. Retail has been another sector. Another sector where we saw some put selling. We saw some aggressive paper there on names like LB. I think that had earnings, if I'm not mistaken here. But you had a nice move, tradable move. The finish line. All right, so they pretty much played a variety of things, from FANG to retail to even biotech. There's been some big winners. SRPT, this move here, they caught the whole move. That REGN, which was a monster. And biotech scared the living daylights out of me. They really do. But, again, if you're playing calls, you lose. The most you're going to lose is your premium. So, but there's been some nice winners in biotech as well. So it hasn't been that they're focusing on one group or just FANG or anything like that. It's been across the board. Also, let me show you a little bit Friday off this. This is the market updates, and then I'll get to a couple of your questions. Here's what I wanted to show you off Thursdays. Look at this. This is this is notable trade. Snap has been a name that's been catching some. This is Facebook. These are the top changes in open interest off Thursday. Okay, not Friday. So going into Friday morning. So, look at the size, though. You know what I mean? So it's hard for me to think that these things may be done completely when we're still seeing, when we're not seeing the action dry up. And Apple even more so. So the Facebook might have another leg up here before it takes a breather, is what I'm saying. Hang on here. This is some of Friday's action. There was some interesting stuff. Etsy has seen some bull flow recently. A good-looking September call sweeper there. September 10 calls. I like that. They're in the money. I don't like those cheap, out-of-the-money buyers, speculating, lottos, whatever you want to call it. The smart money out there, the guys that make it happen aren't afraid to lay wood, as I like to say. They're not afraid to lay that big premium. They're willing to do so. They're just using options as a form of leverage more than anything else. So you have Etsy here, September call sweeper, $282,000 bet. Stock was strong Friday. There's also been some news or chatter, if you want to call it that, around Etsy that they might be up for sale. I'm not too, you guys probably know more about that than I do. But this is what a chart looks like on Etsy, and was really strong Friday, as a matter of fact. So that bar wasn't nearly that big. This was Friday's action. So, interesting name. Where did I, hold on, I'm navigating here. Also, what I found interesting, there was some put selling activity, strange put selling activity. One of the names was the Greek ETF, GREK. Now, I don't know if that's going to do much for you guys. Yeah, it's not really a hot thing to trade, but I found this interesting that, Greece has been a menagerie. It's been a disaster there. It looks like finally has bottomed out and trying to make a U-turn. And they sold some June $9 puts right at the open. So you had unusual wise guy put selling. Nothing on the call side that I see. That was strong throughout the day. Hang on. What else do we got from Friday? There was a lot of repeat activity Friday. What I mean by repeat, a lot of the familiar names just continue. Like I said, the Apple, the Facebooks, WDC. This has been a name. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard me, if you follow me on Twitter, mention this name a gazillion times. There's been a ton of buying in this thing. And what I liked about it, there was some strong activity post-earnings and post-election. I got earnings stuck in my mind. Post-election in WDC. You can see it had a nice move higher. Okay, and then what happened was, as it should, right? If you're not Apple, basically what the normal thing that should happen is you go into some pullback or consolidation. Okay, and what happened, this thing went into some consolidation, but I would say midway through this consolidation, they really started to come after this thing again in size. So sweepers were laying some big wood, all bulled up, and then, had another leg higher. You had earnings in the middle here, not much of a reaction. I think it was up a couple points, nothing huge, but they're still playing this thing. We're seeing a lot of October activity come into WDC. So that's been a hot name. Again, up here, it's a little different now. I would suggest the same thing. Wait for something like this at the least, a little bit of a pull, and then if we see some aggressive sweeper activity come in there, you can use that to set up a trade. And I'm not a big fan of buying these big green bars, no matter what the flow looks like. No matter what the flow looks like. Because, again, this is not initial activity in WDC. There's been 100 bull sweepers in this thing. So that's been a hot name. Micron, still. Ho-hum, another Micron call sweeper. Seems like every day it catches a call sweeper. Now, I would say we are starting to see some of their bullish positions being rolled out. In other words, they're not all new positions being opened. There was a lot of size in April from a couple months back. May, they're starting to push those positions out to July, January, October. You know what I mean? That whole roll up, roll out thing I mentioned they do. All right, but again, the flow's been bullish. Has been bullish. What else did we see? Friday wasn't a ton of activity. ILG, I mentioned, caught more activity. Twitter, and anytime Twitter gets some momentum to the upside, you're going to see at the least momentum sweepers get behind the name. But there's been a decent amount of bull sweepers in Twitter. I will add the real activity has mostly been focused out in September. Yeah, you get people trading weeklies and stuff like that for a trade, but the real bets look like they're being placed out in September with some time behind them. So that's had a lot of juice, especially after Cuban mentioned it. Snap seems to be catching buying on any little pullback. You have earnings coming. That's an issue. If there's not much of an earnings reaction, or there's a muted earnings reaction, in other words, not really anything drastic, I would keep a close eye on Snap sweepers post earnings. Now, if the stock gaps up 3, then it's useless. But you had some activity come again into this little 3-day pullback in Snap. I will say that there was a really good looking Snap sweeper Thursday and a size bet Wednesday into weakness, back-to-back days. But again, you do have earnings coming up. So you would have to navigate around it. All right, so an example, Snap. Same thing. You're looking to buy this type of pull for a trade. I wouldn't recommend initializing a position up here. If it pulls back, it pulls back. If it doesn't, it doesn't. This has been Apple. Some of the sweeps this week, spots they've come in at. This off a little minor pullback. Yeah, this is some intraday stuff. So, and this is the stuff, guys, I throw in, and I also post a lot of this on Twitter as well. But I'll go more in depth, especially on the sentiment side and stuff like that. Here's an interesting name. Let me show you guys. Where is it? This thing has been an animal over a 2-day span. Anybody, and I know a lot of guys, members in the room, anybody play this GMO off recent activity? Let me get your comments up here. I can't see your comments here. Anybody take a shot on this GMO? You're still in on a GMO. Very nice. Yeah, this was, and listen, I day trade, and I've been focused more on that for a couple of years now. So I try not to let too many winners bother me. There's going to be winners, obviously, that I day trade and didn't swing. Yeah, you swing trade, you're looking for decent sized winners. That's why you choose to swing trade. But this is one I really wish I was in, because you've heard me mention, like I sort of got a little checklist in my head that really happens just automatically on the fly now. It's almost like a habit. When I see sweeper activity come in, this GIMO was just picture perfect. Everything you want to see when you're swing trading off wise guy activity was in this GIMO. And I'm not just saying it because it ran. Those of you who know or who are in the room, I was saying it before the stock even ticked up a nickel, that there wasn't a flaw in the activity that came into the GMO that day. I day traded it. Usually I got a quick trigger. I sat in the thing the whole day. That's how much I like the action. But basically, so you get an idea of why. First, I told you I hate doing it for day trading purposes, let alone swing trade. But as a swing trader, I would never chase green, chase a move like this. So that's one of the first things I look for. Is the stock overextended a bit? In other words, has it been running of recent? Is it consolidating? Is it off a decent pullback? GMO, obviously not extended. Caught the action, where did it catch it? Right here, I think. But not extended and off an earnings pullback. So That's one solid thing. Two, was the activity aggressive? Now, there was sweeper activity. They came in, they hit a couple different things. There was size there. I mean, a name like this never sees that type of size. And more importantly, it opened up the largest position of open interest at the time. That alone told me it was notable activity. So point being, everything that I would look for as far as characteristics of sharp flow coming into a name, stuff I really would like to take a position in and swing, it met it all. So you also, now along the way, you had some put selling. You had Friday, even more sweeper activity come in. So, a lot of technicians were seeing this gap fill as a potential target. And that's, you see, guys, that's where some of the things, it helps drastically if you can combine the two. If you see activity, and especially you see me harping on it, that I'm excited, that I can't even swing trade it, and you see something on your end that you have confidence in, I mean, that's the goods right there. That's the goods right there. So if, in other words, it lines up as far as technicals are concerned, or even fundamentals, if you look at fundamentals or anything else for that matter you look for, and the flow, the sweeper activity that come in is that strong, that's where this stuff can be a huge asset. It's wasted because not all, I wouldn't say all, it's mostly experienced guys that do not, but some of the newer traders who come in, especially I see them into the steam room, they'll come in on a discount promotion for the first month, and they just want to buy every single order or anything that hits the board. You know what I mean? And obviously you can't do that. You want to get to the ability where you can be selective and pick and choose the noteworthy stuff that applies to your strategy. And that's what you're waiting for. Everything else tells a story. Okay, like for example, Friday. Okay, I mentioned there was some notable activity. The Etsy we were talking about, the put selling in Greek. Apple had some aggressive momentum type sweeper activity, which told you there was some juice there for a day trade if you were looking to do that. But even more importantly, what it told me, you could see a lot of green on the board. Okay, and that told us that the market, it was going to be a strong momentum day. There's some days, especially during earnings season more than anything, this board is so mixed and sloppy and confusing, it's so useless. But that's as strong as a signal as any to really not do much. Because it's telling you the market's probably choppy or there's not much juice out there to trade off anyway. But you wait for the clarity. You wait for the flow to tell you what you're looking to hear. Looking to see. Not hear, but looking to see. And this was one of those days where we saw a lot of call buying. Put buyers disappeared. There was one here, SeaWorld. That's pretty much was the put activity you could see here. And they have earnings, so I wouldn't even make too big of a deal of that. But this Seas was the only put activity that we saw for a lot of the afternoon here. And it could be used, again, it doesn't have to be used as a buy signal. If you're in a long position, maybe you want to hold it a little bit longer as the board looks like this. Not everything has to be a buy, sell signal. And you can see the market, from here, 1 o'clock on, pretty much was at its best. And that's where flow was really trending you know, in its entirety green here. You can see, look, from 1 o'clock on, there's not much red. You know, so that's what I wait for as far as the overall flow. Not every name looking to take action off any name. You know, if, like I said, the GMO pops up, if it's something that lines up with what I like to trade, that would be an actionable alert. Otherwise, I'm looking for sentiment purposes and stuff like that. All right, let me get to some of your questions here so we can talk about some of the stuff that's on your mind. Hang on here. All right, what do we got? Let me scroll back and see. Seeing a lot of familiar names. What's up, Jim, Ani? All right, let me get to shop. Any sweepers in shop? I don't remember seeing any sweepers in shop, no. Especially that hit the board. Nothing. This, you had, the shop have earnings? Looks like a put block, probably protection into earnings. April 11th. That's all I see on shop. I don't remember seeing anything noteworthy on shop. What else we got? Hi, Jesus. I'm wondering about repeat buying by smart money. Let's say I bought calls for GMO after a sweep. All right. So what are you asking me, Alaric? Specifically, in other words, repeat activity in GMO coming in after the fact. See, repeat activity, in my definition of repeat activity, is when sweepers come back to buy more of a name. Okay? So, obviously it's important because that's where you see, you know, the more repeat activity you see, the more these things tend to stay strong and continue to run. I told you, it's a lot of times you'll see either the flow turn or the call sweeper activity dry up, and that's when these things run out of juice, per se. But at the same time, you can't trade, you know, every single repeat call buyer you see in a name. You know, and that's why I stress, if you still like a name that's extended, at least wait for some sort of pullback. You know, an easy solution would be look for a down day in the name at the least, and if there's a call sweeper, a good-looking call buyer that comes in to that weakness, then for a trade. You know, but what you want to focus on, the strongest activity, is when the repeat buying comes in to consolidation, where a name hasn't moved yet. You understand what I'm saying? Like, remember that IAC I was referring to? Why was that significant? Because the call sweeper activity came in to weakness from their initial buy point. You understand? As opposed to, there was a call sweeper last week. Now, you're not even hearing me talk about that because that comes up here. Again, they could be rolling up, rolling out for all I know. You know what I mean? Even though it didn't look that way in the flow. You want to see the repeat buying come in to that consolidation or into a pullback. And that would be a strong signal that somebody's taking a serious position there. Yeah, but I don't want to give the impression that repeat call buying means to just buy a name no matter what it's up from initial activity. You know, like I said, Apple, I mean, has seen repeat call activity. I can't even explain to you how much. You know what I mean? Every day there's repeat call activity in Apple. That doesn't mean you can buy Apple. Oh, that's a bad example. But it doesn't mean you can buy Apple every single day. You don't want to get into that type of thing. You know what I mean? So, I hope that answers your question. And I know you were talking about the GIMO. I think what you're referring to is, you're asking me now, can I buy the GIMO up here because there was sweeper activity? And the answer to that question for me would be no. I wouldn't. I wouldn't. If you missed the initial activity in GMO, you spit on it and wait for the next one. You know, now you know what to look for in the next one. That's all. But I wouldn't chase like that. All right. What do we got here? Nice action Friday for oil stocks. Of course, we need a follow through and some bazooka. Yeah, oil's tough. Commodities are tough. It's just a tough game right now. It's a tough game. You know, across the board, they lit up copper, gold, silver, oil. You know, and the problem with oil, I like trading the energy names, but like Ani's pointing out, you really want to see them get aggressive in size in these energy things. What's been happening is there'll be some call buying, and then all of a sudden you see a $4 million block put buyer in USO. You know, just like that, a day or two later. And, you know, it shows you that there's uncertainty there, you know? Now, there'll be squeezes along the way, of course. But me personally, if I want to make a play on the energy sector, and chances are if you're looking to play there, you're looking to make a nice hit there. Otherwise, there's easier money to be made in other things right now. Like Ani pointed out, I want to see the bazooka. I want to see that 140,000 contract call buyer in USO again. That's what I want to see. I want to see aggressive opening put selling in USO, OIH, and the rest of them. That's the type of activity I want to see. If that doesn't come in oil rallies, so be it. I don't care, you know? But I wouldn't, and I get into that problem too, Ani, I wouldn't force it. You know, I wouldn't take, even if there's a little bit of flow there and say, oh, they're starting to buy energy, let me get all bulled up. I would wait for, and it's obvious, it will be obvious when they come after it. But it's been a tough trade, What else we got? Gilead, we saw, Gilead's the worst stock in America. But we did see some December call buying. It was size, but they went out pretty far. And that's pretty much it. Other than that, call buyers have been buried in Gilead. Every bull under the sun has been buried in this Gilead. Every bull. So, again, if it lines up to what if you're looking at a chart or Elliott waves and you see 5 waves down or Fibonacci, Liberace, whatever the hell you're looking at, and it looks bullish to you, you can use that December flow as confirmation. And what the December flow is telling you is that somebody's making a big bet on Gilead, but they're making sure they have enough time behind them. They're paying for time. All right. Another approach you could take is what I mentioned with the aggressive repeat buying. Okay. If Gilead does its usual and hangs around here, if not go lower over the short term, if they really like Gilead, they're going to come after it aggressively. They'll buy more into weakness, and then they'll buy Octobers, and then they'll buy Novembers. You understand? Otherwise, it was just a big bet in December, and we really don't know what it's all about. You know, we really don't know the true intent there. I mean, it was one day of action in Gilead out in December. So, and I don't want to give the wrong impression. I don't want to make it completely futile. It's not totally useless, because if you're using it in addition to something you're using on your end that you have confidence in, you can take that as confirmation, and you're going to find success. You're not going to touch nothing but winners. There's going to be losers, obviously, but you're going to find some success. Okay, so, and then that's what I want you guys to understand and take away. at least from this webinar, is that you can use a lot of the order flow if you're incorporating it into something you're already having success with. And a lot of members in the Steam Room do that, and do that well. A lot. Ani's one of them. Jim is another one. You know what I mean? There are a lot of traders out there that, whether they're looking at technicals or other shit, they use the order flow to confirm what they're looking at. So they don't need to see super aggressive activity in XYZ. They're just looking for some sweeper confirmation. You understand? Because what it tells them is, let's say you're looking at a Gilead chart, okay? And it lines up to what you're looking at on your end. What the wise guy activity is going to signal to you, it's going to tell you now there are higher odds, a higher probability that this name can see momentum now that it saw wise guy activity. Because that's what wise guy activity generally is. I mean, in my opinion, it's just the strongest momentum indicator on the face of the earth. You know, it tells you that there's a high probability that that underlying will be in play now. That's what it tells me. You know, a lot of people misinterpret when I look at flow. I don't look at the actual bet being right. There's a lot of ways to make money without that bet being right by expiration. That's what wise guy activity tells me, that there's a higher probability of this name being in play now prior to catching this action. The more activity he catches, the higher the probability of momentum coming into that name. That's the simple way I look at it. And, you know, a lot of flow guys out there, or unusual activity guys out there, or option guys out there in general, don't use flow that way. They rely on the bet. Right? Tail that order. Oh, I'm tailing that order. You know, I'm following that guy. And that's where you get into trouble, in my opinion. Because you can't tail these guys. You can't do what they do. You don't have the resources. You don't have the money. You can't even come close to mirror what these guys do. You're already picking and choosing what names you like. You're not playing all the action, all the top bets out there. You're just tailing the ones you like anyway. So it's foolish to try to mirror them. Yeah, a lot of times I see them come into a name, and you know, there'll be a sweep, okay? I remember it was in XBI, the biotech ETF, okay? There was a sweeper, decent looking sweeper. He came into XBI. It popped the next day. You could have flipped it, but let's say you didn't, and a lot of people didn't. This is why I remember it. They were looking to swing it for a bigger move. Then XBI got killed over the course of the next week or so. Killed. Okay? So, you know, I think it was front month. Those options are done. What happens? All of a sudden we see XBI sweepers coming out to wazoo, tattooing the thing. So there was a good-looking XBI sweep up at the top, but then there was a bazooka fired when that thing pulled back. And guess what happens? The traders out there who tailed that first order, they're not tailing the other orders down there. They just got beat up on the first one. And you don't need me to tell you what happened to XBI after that. So that's the problem. You know, you trade according to your plan. You use the flow to confirm your plan. You know, if you're a day trader like me, that's how I use it. You know, I look at it as for my trading. Now, you know, I'm sharing my commentary and what I feel about the order with others, members, because they swing trade, position trade, and a lot of that stuff. But for me, for day trading purposes, I ask a simple question. Can this sweeper create enough momentum for me to get a day trade out of this thing? That's all I'm asking. I even forget sometimes what the hell he bought, what month or what price he paid. Yeah, that's all I'm asking myself because that's the way I trade. You know, Jim, Ani, and a lot of other members, they trade differently, completely different. You understand? But there's always the stronger action is good enough for all of us, and that's like Gmo. I can trade it, you can trade it. As long as you trade in the market, you can trade it. But I'm talking more about the other flow. Let me get to a couple more questions. Anybody else have anything? Speaking of Twitter, how about Square, other Dorsey name? May 20 call lost value post earnings despite jumping stock. Yeah, the IV was probably jacked up, right? In that Square. I'll tell you that's what's frustrating, and that's why I can't play earnings. You know, I've seen a lot of people complain about that recently, where the stock actually has gone up and they're losing money on the calls. I would smash a screen if that happened to me. I really would. The stock is going up and I'm still losing money. I mean, you want to talk about being behind the eight ball in this game? You're not going to have a lot of success in this game if you play a lot of that stuff where if a stock's pushing higher, you still can't make money. So I'm not trying to belittle you. I'm just saying that's a good lesson right there. You should learn in regards to Square to stay away from that crap. All kidding aside, it's hard enough to make money in this game, let alone that. Mandeep, what's up, Deep? And Mandeep is another example. He's awesome. You know, he knows the options game. He knows the markets. He's in every day, just focused, looking for what meets his game plan. You know what I mean? He doesn't get too concerned or wrapped up into what everybody else is trading or how they're using flow, because other people are using it in other ways and finding success. That's fine. But he waits for things to line up on his end, and when they do, he fires. I know you traded Apple, right? You were eyeing Apple for a day trade, had momentum sweepers, but he's one of the experienced traders that I'm referring to that uses the flow in addition to what he does. He doesn't use it as a stock picking buy and sell signal type thing. He uses it to confirm what he's looking at, that he has confidence on his end. But Mandeep is talking about LYV, was another great example of wise guy action and the stock. Oh, LYV, yeah. Jeez. Yeah, earnings, you see, that's what frustrates me about earnings. You know, even as a day trader, it gets in the way of a lot of big winners. But I can't complain, and I don't think swing traders can complain this earnings season. The reason being, the run-up has been there. You know, so if you liked action in the name and it caught earnings, it was worth a shot. You can ride it for the 2 weeks. You know, you caught a decent trade there. You could sell a chunk, leave a runner into earnings, and if you got lucky, you got lucky. But you're leaving a runner. But it is frustrating when you get this post earnings when you had nice action, nice entry in the name. That is annoying. But a lot of this game is frustrating. Let's be honest here. What else we got? Let me see. I'm bad at these questions. I keep fumbling around them, and I apologize. How do you classify? Hold on, I came in. Super fundamental question. But how do you classify an activity as a long versus sale of puts? And do you disregard spreads in wise guy activity? Good question, Jennifer. Two things. The way we get an idea of whether calls were bought or sold, or you're talking about puts, are the details of the trade. Okay? In other words, I'll give you a simple example. I'm looking at all the details of the trade, how the order was processed, what exchange, and so forth. I'll give you an idea. Hold on here. Bear with me. We put some of the details that you can see here in private Twitter. I just want to show you so you get an understanding. Hold on. Bear with me because I'll answer your question. It'll be a lot easier like this. Hang on. Come on. I want to show you. And I'll tell you about the put selling so you could understand what I was saying. Hang on. Yeah, so basically what I'm scrolling through is I look at the details of the trade. You know, was it on the bid and the offer? What did implied vol do? What, you know, the exchange it was traded on. The ISE, for example, it gets reported whether it was an opening buyer or not. So there are ways to get a best guess, per se, okay? Unless it's on the ISE, you never know for sure, okay, unless it's reported that way, but you can get a best guess. And it's not as simple as bid and offer, even though you will get it right more than you get it wrong by just going bid and offer, but there are other details. And you can see here, okay, like this one, for example, I don't even know what this name is, but it caught some unusual activity. These are the details of that flow, okay? So opening, so we know the volume was greater than open interest there, so likely opens a new position, okay? These are June 32 calls. You can see 61% of them were on the offer side, would imply vol dramatically higher. So likely these things were bought, the majority of them. Okay, so again, I'm giving you an idea of, Jennifer, what I look at. Now, members don't necessarily have to look at that. Okay, they could if they have the resources to do so on their end, but that's what they have me for. You know, and if I don't know for sure, and I hate to use the word for sure because I never know for sure, but if I don't have a good idea and I'm uncomfortable saying whether they're bought or sold, I will tell you that. Like a lot of there are members who will tell me, Jesus, did you see that put selling in XYZ? And you know, I did see it, but I'm not so sure those puts were sold. They could have been bought, and I will share that information. You know what I mean? I'm only gonna elaborate on the trade, whether bought or sold, if I really have strong conviction by looking at the details of the order. So that's what I look at, basically, Jennifer. I'm looking at the details, the exchanges, implied volatility, stuff like that. I hope that answers your question. What else? See, these questions keep jumping around on me. I can't get them in order, so I'm not skipping you purposely if I don't see it. Yeah, that OLED was a monster, an absolute monster. Oh, you know what else has been a crazy stock? What's that telecommunications one that keeps gapping up? There's a bidding war going on for them. You guys know. Oh, STRP. You want to see nuts? I'll show you nuts. Look at this chart, first of all, okay? Monster gap, right? Let me pull this down. Gapped up from 35 to 80, then gapped up again, and there's been flow there. But you know, how do you chase these gaps? That's the problem. Hold on. This STRP is crazy. And they started rolling up some positions as well recently. Here was the initial big buyer, almost 1.4 million. Okay, when the stock was 105, December's. So they went all the way out on this thing. Yeah, it was over here, I think. So, like, how do you expect to buy this thing over here? And it's gapped up twice since that. The stock was at like $105 at the time. And look where she is now. How do I move this it hit a high of 165 or so, I think, 168 from 105. And they were buying it here off this move already. And look at the size of that. A $1.4 million block on the call side. So that's been another one, but that OLED has been craziness. Absolute craziness. What else? We got Square I spoke about. Well, to answer your question on Square, I haven't really seen anything. You'll see some small call buying here, some protection around earnings. Nothing noteworthy. The most noteworthy activity that I have seen come in recently has been in this Home Depot. I can't even explain to you. They're buying like this thing hasn't rallied like this, and like they're giving something away. Now, there's a couple things, okay? This is not the GMO, and here's why. The activity is aggressive, so as far as the activity, it is. But this thing comes off a big move, even though there's some consolidation there, which is better, okay? If there wasn't any consolidation here, I would say forget it. But there's some consolidation, and you have earnings coming up. Okay, so put it this way, if there wasn't earnings alone, I would say this action's psychotic. But they have been buying this, and everything, like I said, coming in, buying weakness. They bought a shitload. They came in, and look at this order flow in Home Depot. Look at this. All right, so there was some protection back here. Oh, I'm going too far back here. I'm sorry. You can see the amounts are pretty decent here. February, April, but this is April 27th. So look what they did here. April 27th, they come in. August 175, August 165. This doesn't even tell the whole story. There were sweepers, smaller sweepers that kept coming after these blocks anyway. So this was a sweep here. It's not just blocks. Then on 428, where am I? 427. So here's where they started buying. Okay, and I'll be honest, the action came in. I wasn't crazy because, again, it's off. Look at this move and going into earnings. Then the stock pulls back. Now, this is when it gets my attention officially. You can see here it ended up closing strong. I actually day traded it. The stock comes down decent. I think it was about $2. Look what they do into the weakness. Right into the morning weakness. They scoop it up. Look at all this. Okay, so that's the confirmation that I'm talking about. You want to see. You know what I mean? In a name, it tells you that it may not be just an earnings hedge or replacement per se. Still could be, again, because you're going into earnings, but the odds that it's not are go more in your favor when you see them. And they bought some more recently that didn't hit the board into this pullback here. So that's been the strongest activity that hasn't exploded yet. Everything else, as far as the sharper action out there, I'm not just saying it, has exploded. And I'm trying to think off the top of my head any other initial activity. There's not much of it. There's been some size call buying, but there's no way to know if it's earnings play or not. It's just been one order, for example. Not that aggressive activity we like to see. So Home Depot, one to watch. I think earnings 516. Maybe they run it into earnings. And, the other animal has been Lowe's. That prior to this recent action in Home Depot, I would say Lowe's had sharper call buying than Home Depot did. And, they're both strong. And one moves, the other one will move with it. But there's been some Lowe's call buying as well, but nowhere near the type that we've seen in Home Depot. What do we got? Anyway, Gilead, I answered. Do the wise guys know that their scanners like yours exist? And if so, how do they get the market makers in their favor? Again, the scanners, Paul, I don't use a scanner. I guess you can say this board is a scanner, but it's not really. Because here's the thing, okay? Scanners very rarely are going to pick up those small Apple sweepers that initially come in before the size. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not scanning for size. I'm watching the flow. That's basically what I'm doing, is watching the tape, looking for aggressive buying. Okay, so, and that's why I think in our room we're looking at more flow than you might be familiar with as far as other places that look for just unusual activity off a scan. Because a lot of the flow will start off as small aggressive activity and then become unusual. But by that time, usually the name already got hot. There's nothing unusual about a 750 or 1,000 lot call sweeper in Facebook. That's not unusual. But to me, when there's a Facebook sweep for 750, then another Facebook sweep for 100, then another Facebook sweep for 100, then another Facebook sweep for 500, you know what I mean? That is what sticks out to me. And that's not going to get picked up from a scanner. A scanner will pick up the big blocks, but I'm not even interested in that stuff. Those who know me know that I'm a sweeper guy. I'm not really, the blocks don't do me. If there's no sweeper activity mixed in, if it's just one big block, it doesn't really get me excited. I like the aggressive activity. I like the activity where they keep coming after it. And that allows me to pick up on a variety of things from ILG, okay, the initial activity there that I can promise you not a lot of eyeballs were on, to initial activity in a Facebook or in Netflix that scanners won't pick up on. Now, when these names get hot, everyone's going to pay attention to the activity, okay? But, when, I give you an example, like a Netflix, all right? Netflix here, this is a perfect example of wise guy activity and why I feel it's such an edge. I'm biased, obviously, but here's a perfect example. Netflix, okay, was choppy here for a bit. All of a sudden, you had this fake breakout, right? Reeled in some bulls, then you had this. Now, I could tell you, my Twitter feed, even in the Steam room, the chat room, there were people talking about shorting Netflix. But that tune changed quickly when there was 1,000 lot buyer in Netflix that was probably $1 million bet, I think it was, August buyer that came into the weakness. All right, so that's where I think the big edge is. The edge is not when Apple's catching call buying into a huge run, or Facebook's catching call buying after a huge run, and everyone's trading Facebook. The edge for me and Steam Room members is truly when you see wise guy activity diverged from price and sentiment. That's the true edge. So you had all of retail looking to short Netflix. And it may have been a quality short. I have no idea. But as soon as that August buyer hit the board, that's it. Okay, he may be early. That's why he probably went out to August instead of front month or something like that. But that told us that this was nothing more than this. Okay, or gave us the confidence to look for nothing more than this and look for an entry. And you didn't even have to be in a rush. You know, like a lot of unusual activity, you have to rush because everybody sees it, and you have to rush, get a position on, because if you hesitate, you'll miss it. This was something that you could sit back and say, all right, I know now, you know, I know the wise guys are looking for an entry here. They're not flipping to the put side. They're not looking to play the downside here. They're using this weakness for an entry. So you can even take the approach, let it bottom, let it do what it's got to do. I don't have to rush. You see, even here, it bottoms a little bit, and look for an entry there if you were looking for the bigger trade. That's where I think wise guy activity is at its best. Again, that's why I say out of consolidation or out of change in trend. And yeah, I could talk about this all day long because it fascinates me. But the pre-election, our election in November, was a blueprint of strong signal of wise guy activity and how it could be so useful. Okay, you had nothing but put buying, both as far as retail is concerned and even sweeper side. Okay, and all that tells me anyway is the momentum's down. When I see put sweepers dominating the flow, it tells me the momentum is to the downside. The market's heavy. The professionals out there are looking to take advantage of downside momentum. That's what it tells me. Okay? So what I'm looking for when I see put buying dominate over the course of days especially, I'm looking for signs that the flow is turning. Okay? So back pre-election, we were seeing put buying. We were seeing sentiment really start to get bearish amongst retail investors and traders. And we were seeing weakness as far as price is concerned. Right? I mean, the market looked ugly. We were seeing a lot of VIX buying. We were seeing a lot of VIX-related products being bought. We were seeing VXX call sweepers, UVXY call sweepers, betting on higher prices on those products. Then something changed. Okay? Not in price, not in sentiment, but in wise guy flow. We started to see now IWM call sweepers, not put sweepers. IWM put sweepers were dominating this whole little pullback. We started to see IWM call sweepers that come in. Not just one. Hey, one order can mean anything. You want to see a bunch of them. We were seeing them consistently come in. Then we started to see, and this was the nail in the coffin, not only the flow turn in the major ETFs, but VXX and UVXY put sweepers now. Okay? As the VIX and UVXY and everybody on CNBC telling you to get all protected up into the election just in case Trump wins, we were seeing the opposite amongst the smart money. And that's the divergence that you look for. That's the edge in this game. You know, bull flow in a name that's going higher doesn't tell me much. It doesn't tell me much. You know, Apple's going higher and there's bullish activity. It should be that way. But when sentiment is bearish, price is bearish, flow has been bearish and that starts to turn, yeah, that's the edge, in my opinion. And then, interestingly enough, what we saw, it wasn't even the election. People forget that. It wasn't the election that created the squeeze. We saw a massive squeeze pre-election. So it all lined up perfectly. You had the retail put the call at one of the highest levels we've seen in a long time. You know, everybody was all bared up but the wise guys as they were starting to line up on the bull side, betting against VIX and all that stuff. And then we saw, you know, the massive squeeze pre-election, and then you guys remember what happened. The election futures were down huge. By the time the market opened up, we were already coming back drastically. So, you know, that's the edge, guys. That's the edge. And again, it's not, you're not going to see that every day off every alert. You know what I mean? But that's what you wait for. Like, for example, myself, I wasn't shorting. I wasn't buying puts. And people ask me, why don't I, you know, short or buy puts? For that simple reason. Okay, unless we're in some huge bear market or 2008 Armageddon style, I'm waiting for the flow to turn. So while everybody's buying puts and playing the short side, betting against things, I'm waiting for signs that the smart money is looking to take the other side. And now that's what I look for on an intraday basis as a day trader constantly. You know, I can look for things like that intraday that benefit me. If I was a swing trader, position trader, obviously I got to wait out for, you know, on a larger scale, big picture wise. But intraday, we see it, and that's what we look at constantly. We look at what the put the calls are doing on an intraday basis. You know, if retail's leaning on the put side too heavily and the flow starts to turn, then we're looking for an entry on the long side. All right, X-ray. Yeah, that was another one for a good example. X-ray. Did I hit up the right symbol? Yeah. Chris mentioned X-ray here, which was another good example of aggressive sweeper activity. I day traded it. It was a nice winner on this day, faded late, and had earnings. So, you know, it offered that opportunity where you could get in, trim the position, take off risk, and if you like the action, you like the name, leaves a runner into earnings if you feel comfortable doing it, and whatever happens, happens. But this looked incredible, X-ray. It looked incredible. You know, look, this is exactly what I was talking about. Consolidation, right? This is not buying it up here. See, that's what I don't like. If, let's say, for example, sweeper comes right here, it doesn't excite me. So this would happen, you get into a little choppy consolidation, and then right here, early morning, before this candle even took off, early morning, stock up 15 cents, 20 cents, I think it was, you had aggressive sweeper activity come in. You know, that's initial activity. Now, I'm being honest, whatever happens, earnings is irrelevant to me because you're going to have to take the risk of holding it through earnings. So up, down, sideways, crooked, if it's up, it's great. I hope it's up because I know a couple of people who traded it and are going to leave a runner into earnings. But, you know, that's the one good thing about this earnings season. You had this to trade without earnings getting in the way. Paul's asking Boeing. Boeing rarely catches wise guy activity, Paul. Very rare. When it does, it catches some small sweeper activity, and it would be noteworthy. But I haven't seen wise guy sweepers in Boeing in a long time. Peanuts. But it's rare. It's rare. And And Jennifer, to ask your question about spreads, do I ignore spreads? Not all the time, but they gotta be, it's gotta be a notable combo. You know what I mean? It's gotta be a noteworthy size call spread for me to get excited off of. Maybe it opens the largest position of open interest. You know what I mean? Or something like that. But again, when the wise guys want something, okay, usually they're just going to take out offers. Usually they get real aggressive. Now, there may be spreads in the middle of all that, like Home Depot. I don't know if you guys remember, but Home Depot here, by the way, caught monster call spreads. Monster. That was down here. So that was prior to this action here. You guys might have seen me post it on Twitter. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was, let's see here. Can I even do a search? I don't think you could do this on Twitter anymore, right? They ruined the one thing, Twitter, that I liked about it. That was where you could search the activity. Oh. Hold on. No, I can't go back. But I think I could go back on my personal. Hold on. I'm just curious. I think, Jennifer, this was June. Oh, I got to put the symbol in. Oh, here it is. Hold on. Where are we? Here it is. So, yeah, this obviously got my attention. Say Home Depot, size June call spread. June 155 by 160 call spread, 15,000 times. You know, and you could see me elaborate even on Twitter at the time. Monster opens, new build position, footprints of Sharpies. Now you can see, here's where the stock was, 150. So that was to start off this rally, 150. Yeah, so over here or over here? Oh, over here, I think. Yep, right here. So right when it was on the verge of breaking out. And now they're coming in hot and heavy. So, like I said, if it wasn't earnings around, this would be quite an interesting play, and still may be. You know, you still, like the couple examples we just looked at, you may get that lift prior to earnings that you can at least get a free ride into earnings. That has been the beauty of a lot of these things. All right, let me get to one or two more questions just in case I missed you guys, and we'll call it a Saturday. We got the Derby here. We got to try and lose some money. What do we got? Who did I miss? Did I miss anybody? Alex, I think you highlighted a few of those just before. Which one are you talking about, Alex? X-ray? Can we have large put sale flows? Ani, that's our next thing we're working on. Oh, Square you're talking about, Alex. The next thing we're working on is put sellers. You know, we had to get the most important thing, and listen, the Sangucci gang, every day they work on new technology and have done updates in the room. So number one priority was this filter here, okay? Because you got a lot of experienced traders, and not only that, that really want to pay close attention to the flow. And, you know, you got traders talking about action and certain names they're in and what they're doing. So the filter basically is just all my commentary on the action. All right. And Jennifer, that's where you would see the breakdown of the details I'm looking at as far as buying and selling and stuff like that. All right. So the next step, we're going to be able to search some of the commentary on it, and that's where you'll be able to pick up put sellers, because we can't have put sellers as far as this scan, because like I said, put selling, you really have to be as sure as possible to know it's put selling. You know, just because puts hit the bid doesn't mean it's put selling, and if you get it wrong, it's a put buyer. So you don't want to do that. So we're working on that. That's going to be the next step. You know, we had the broadcast where live video, audio, that's been a huge hit, obviously. So during the day, it's live commentary I'm giving on the flow. Now they got the chart feature in, which also will eventually have indicators and put the call. So that's the next step that we want. Put the call there with some indicators, and you know, intraday put the call more than anything else. You know what I mean? So we're working on it. They're working on it, little by little, each and every day. They're getting new things done. The market updates tab, we really wanted to do that. That was a big one. So we'll get there, Ronnie. We'll definitely get there. But like I said, put the call, an intraday put the call where I don't have to post it, and we could just all look at it in real time right here and see the same thing. I think that would be extremely useful. Extremely useful. So that's that's number one on the priority list. All right. And I think we're good here, right? Again, I apologize if I missed anybody's question. I don't know how to go back and look at the questions. I'm pretty bad at this stuff. All these webinars and everything's still new to me. All right, so if I missed your question, I apologize. Don't take it personal. You know where to find me. Hit me up on Twitter, or if you're a member, you can hit me anytime in here. Also, guys, I mentioned already, but if you're interested in even testing things out, I posted the link there in the room. You can get it. You'll get the course, and just for an extra $100, you get the course with a free month of the Steam Room. With the Steam Room, you get access. All Steam Room members get access to private Twitter. Okay, so that's included in the package with the chat and the course. All right, and we also spun off private Twitter at a more affordable rate. So again, for people who maybe can't afford the Steam Room or are looking just to get a feel for the flow, we got private Twitter flow alerts where you're not getting any audio, video commentary, no live put the calls, all that stuff, but you're getting the order flow all in real time, and you can find that as well at wallstreetjesus.com. You scroll to the bottom of the homepage, and you put your handle in there. It's only $60 a month. All right, but the Steam Room is where you're going to get the knowledge. It's hands-on. Again, we do twice a week post-market recaps. I'm on every morning pre-market, going over some things, and I'm on all damn day. I'm like Al Michaels giving play-by-play on the order flow throughout the day. So that's why I barely have a voice left. All right, so you can go to wallstreetjesus.com, check that all out, and I'll see you guys soon, all right? Don't forget, send it in. The Derby, here's your winner. Don't say, I never give you anything. Gunnavera, you get a nice price on him. You could bet him to win, maybe some exactas. I just want to put a disclaimer in. I'm pretty awful at handicapping horses. Okay, so I just wanted to throw that in as a little disclaimer at the end of it. All right, guys, good luck. Make some money. I'll see you guys soon. Enjoy the weekend.